Oh boy, modern philosophy. I love philosophy so much.
Welcome to this animated introduction to modern philosophy. We'll be considering 5 figures, the ones listed here. These figures ask questions such as, what is the basic stuff or structure of reality? Is it simply atoms and particles, or also medium-sized objects like rocks and streams? Or does it also include people? And what about people's thoughts and feelings, that is, their minds? What's the relationship between all these things? And what about other kinds of things, like the spiritual, social, formal, logical, and so on?
How about the sandwich and all? I'm hungry.
What are the foundations and criteria of knowledge? How is the mind connected to the world in such a way that knowledge is possible? What is nature? Does it just include the medium-sized objects, or also persons? Is there a human nature? Is there an underlying atomic nature? Is there an underlying natural law that governs these things? And what are the relations between these things? How do we explain our knowledge of these things? Again, what is the mind? In what way do we know our own mind and the minds of others? How does this yogi know his own mind? How does he know the minds of other yogis? These are questions of philosophy.
Oh man, this is so cool, I can't wait.
Including metaphysics, epistemology, and the philosophy of mind. Foci of the philosophy of the modern period. We start with Descartes. Descartes lived in a time of bad hair. No matter. He wanted to know what the foundations of knowledge were. If a house doesn't have foundations, of course, it collapses. So Descartes, not wanting his knowledge itself or his thoughts themselves to collapse, wanted to see if there was anything of which he could be absolutely certain to serve as a foundation for his house. Now, the only thing that could be certain in this way would be one that couldn't possibly be doubted, so he thought. This would not be the data of his senses, because these had misled him before. Nor could it be that he was not dreaming, and that none of what seemed real actually was, because he might think that he's awake, but really be dreaming. Pink H's could fill the visual field, and a blue dot could jump into the field and say, dude, you're just dreaming now. Nor could it be mathematical and logical truths, since one can be mistaken about these, or a demon could even be deceiving one about these, an all-powerful demon. This is at least possible. Well, what could Descartes be sure of? He could be sure that he was doubting, and he could be sure if he was doubting that he was thinking. After all, doubting is a kind of thinking. So there must be something that is thinking.
Cogito ergo sum. I think, thus I exist.
Now, this itself, being something indubitable, could be a foundation of knowledge. From this basis, we could prove that there is a God. For instance, this doubter-thinker has an idea of perfection, but this doubter-thinker is an imperfect thing. And an idea of perfection cannot come from an imperfect thing, so it must come from somewhere else. That thing, being perfect, must be God. Also, because God's perfect, God can't be a deceiver. All of this is enough to net the result that whatever I have excellent reason to believe is true, I'm justified in believing is true, because after all, God wouldn't deceive me about these things. Not that kind of God. Now, whatever the weaknesses of this way of thinking are, it established a pattern that was repeated by the other philosophers of the modern period, so many of them anyway. The focus is on the self, or the mind, the thinking mind, the questioning mind, and its relationship with a world, a natural world, and with other minds. Descartes' model was foundational for the philosophies that followed him. Those philosophers might disagree about one or another aspect of the model, but the crucial questions of the relation between self, world, and others remained. That's what makes Descartes the father of modern philosophy.